Lyra stepped off the docking ramp and onto the shimmering platform of the Celestial Note, a karaoke bar floating in orbit above the vibrant swirling gases of the planet Tiriath. The bar's exterior gleamed with prismatic lights that pulsed in time with a rhythm only alien ears could interpret. Its irregular shape defied any human architectural logic. Towers spiraled like seashells, balconies jutted at impossible angles, and glowing tubes carried strange liquids whose purpose was anyone's guess. Inside, the chaos was immediate. Patrons floated in low gravity, some holding drinks in impossibly balanced hands, others playing zero-G instruments that emitted notes visible as arcs of colored light. Holoscreens displayed music lyrics in dozens of languages, some of which Lyra had only glimpsed in ancient linguistic archives. Mechanical instruments vibrated with eerie sentience, occasionally shifting their form mid-song. And yet, amidst this swirl of alien culture, humans were rare and often dismissed. Another human, a Zarkonian, a six-limbed veteran with metallic chitin, snorted as he leaned over the railing. His eyes glimmered red in the dim light. They can't sing, they can't dance, and they sure can't hold a tune. Why they're allowed here, I'll never understand. Lyra's lips quirked into a small, knowing smile. She had heard the sentiment many times before. Humans to the galaxy of large were often underestimated, clumsy, unpredictable, and culturally unrefined. Yet time and again the galaxy would be reminded that humans had a knack for doing the impossible. Clutching her worn, ancient music book, a relic passed down through generations, its pages inscribed with symbols no living translator could fully decipher, Lyra walked toward the sign-up terminal. The device, shaped like a floating orb, blinked at her expectantly. She tapped a few sequences, and her name appeared in luminescent letters across the bar's main stage. Lyra, human. "Ah, a human," muttered a Qatari veteran, his translucent skin glowing flightly in the bar's ambient light. He raised a clawed hand in mock salute, but there was a flicker of curiosity in his multifaceted eyes. The other patrons barely acknowledged her. In a place where music was more than entertainment, where it carried memories, histories, and even unspoken treaties, humans were at best quaint. Lyra ignored the whispers, her focus unshaken. She had not come here to blend in. She had come to remind the galaxy of something they had almost forgotten. The stage awaited, bathed in a soft cerulean glow. Holographic lights danced above it, ready to react to every note, every breath. Lyra took a deep breath, feeling the hum of energy in the air. This bar was unlike any she had encountered. Each patron carried stories older than most human civilizations, scars from wars across multiple star systems, and memories encoded in languages long extinct. Lyra opened her music book carefully. The pages were brittle, the ink faded, but the symbols radiated a quiet authority. This was a song written in a language dead for millennia, a tongue humans had once spoken on Earth before the collapse of civilizations scattered their voices across time. Even on Earth, no living soul could fluently sing it, yet here she was, ready to breathe life into it again. "You really think you can handle that?" A small amphibious alien with iridescent skin whispered, peering over her shoulder. "Those notes, those words, they're gone, forgotten, obsolete." Lyra's lips deepened. "Then I guess it's time someone remembered." She stepped onto the stage. The hum of the bar seemed to shift subtly, as if it sensed her presence. Instruments paused mid-play, holographic projections flickered in anticipation, and a few alien veterans leaned forward. One Zarkonian even lowered his claws, sensing something unfamiliar in the air, something powerful. Lyra placed her hand on the microphone. She didn't need amplification. Her voice would carry through the room, piercing the usual chaos. The first few notes were soft, almost tentative, but they shimmered with a resonance that was unmistakably human. There was a precision in her pitch, a clarity in her tone, and a depth of emotion that no artificial translator or vocal enhancer could replicate. At first, the younger aliens giggled. "Tone-deaf human," one muttered. "This will be entertaining." But their amusement quickly turned to confusion. There was something in the vibrations of her voice, something ancient, something familiar, that tugged at corners of memory they didn't know they had. A veteran Qatari, leaning against the wall with arms crossed, froze mid-drink. His eyes widened as a pattern in Lyra's song matched fragments of an old interstellar hymn, a melody used to commemorate alliances lost to time. He whispered a phrase in a language extinct even to the bar's holographic archives. "It cannot be." The bar grew still. The chaotic instruments fell into a soft harmony with Lyra's voice, responding instinctively to her pitch and rhythm. Light arcs traced the notes through the air, painting intricate patterns on walls and ceilings. Even the holographic lyrics adjusted, displaying the symbols of the long-lost language in glowing elegance. Whispers spread among the patrons. Alien veterans exchanged uneasy glances, memories stirring in their minds like dormant seeds waking from centuries of sleep. Lyra's song wasn't just notes on a scale, it was history, emotion, and human identity condensed into a form the galaxy had almost forgotten. Yet Lyra remained calm, almost serene. She didn't rush, she didn't falter. Each word, each syllable, each vibration of her chest carried intent. She was performing not for applause or attention, she was performing to be remembered. And slowly, imperceptibly at first, the audience began to take notice. A few alien veterans rose from their seats, eyes glimmering with recognition. The younger aliens, unsure of what was happening, glanced at their elders for guidance. There was tension in the room, a quiet electricity that told them this human was doing something extraordinary. Lyra's song lingered on the edges of comprehension. No one alive could translate it fully, yet everyone understood the power behind it. The bar's chaos, the floating drinks, the zero-G dancers, the humming instruments became irrelevant. For the first time, humans weren't outsiders. For the first time, they were central. As the final note of the preliminary verse resonated through the room, there was a collective intake of breath. Something had shifted. Something important. The veterans, who had seen countless wars and outlived civilizations, looked at Lyra not with amusement or curiosity, but with something akin to reverence. The stage lights pulsed softly in response, bathing her in a halo of cerulean and violet. Lyra's fingers brushed the edges of her music book, feeling the weight of history resting in her hands. She knew the hardest part was yet to come, the chorus, where the language's full power and humanity's essence would demand recognition. But for now, the room had changed. The bar that had scoffed at humans was silent. Alien veterans whispered among themselves, some standing up, some saluting. And in that silence, Lyra felt the quiet thrill of the impossible. She had made them listen. This was only the beginning.
The hum of the bar settled into a tense silence as Lyra's voice lingered in the air, vibrating with a resonance that no instrument or alien technology could replicate. For a moment, the usual chaos of the celestial note, floating drinks, zero-G dancers, flickering holo displays, felt suspended, as if the universe itself had paused to listen. Lyra opened the ancient music book further, revealing the next page. The symbols glowed faintly under the stage lights, though no translator in the galaxy could make sense of them. This was a song from a human civilization long erased from memory, a language that had died on Earth centuries ago, yet here it thrived again in her voice. The aliens in the room exchanged uneasy glances. Some of the veterans stiffened, their multi-limbed appendages curling instinctively. The song's cadence struck a chord buried deep in their collective consciousness, like the echo of a long-forgotten treaty or the whisper of a history they had thought lost forever. One elder Zarkonian, who had been a general during the Orion skirmishes, leaned forward, claws tapping lightly on the bar's translucent surface. He murmured, almost to himself, This is from before the wars. It shouldn't exist anymore." His voice was hushed, but the younger patrons nearby turned to listen, curiosity overriding their prior scorn. Lyra began the next section of the song. This part was intricate, requiring more than just vocal skill. It demanded intuition, timing, and an almost supernatural understanding of melody. Each syllable seemed to bend reality slightly, threading through the room and vibrating subtly in the bones of everyone present. The younger aliens tried to mimic her earlier notes, attempting to hum along. They failed miserably, their voices breaking, shattering the illusion. Lyra, meanwhile, sang with effortless precision, each note carrying centuries of human culture. The contrast was stark, and laughter died on the lips of those who had been amused minutes before. The Qatari veteran, who had initially sneered at her presence, now sat rigid, eyes wide and unblinking. Memories flickered across his translucent skin, visions of long-dead human explorers, diplomats, and warriors whose deeds had once resonated across the stars. He whispered fragments of the song's meaning in his ancient tongue, the syllables barely audible. They remember what we have forgotten. They carry the legacy. A ripple passed through the bar. Other veterans, hearing the words or sensing the intent behind them, began to rise. Some saluted, a gesture of respect in their species' culture. Others stood silently, fists clenched or antennae twitching. There was a shared understanding that humans, despite their small numbers and apparent inexperience, held something profoundly unique, an unshakable connection to history and memory, expressed not through technology or weaponry, but through art. Lyra's performance shifted subtly, moving into the bridge of the song. The notes became more complex, weaving patterns in the air that shimmered like living constellations. Holographic projections of ancient Earth landscapes flickered briefly above the stage, forests, oceans, and cities long vanished. Though no human alive had created these visuals, the bar seemed to respond to the power of her voice, translating emotion into imagery. One young alien, barely out of training, whispered to his neighbor, "I don't understand what's happening. How is she doing this?" His neighbor, a veteran of the Interstellar Peacekeeping Corps, shook his head. "It's not about understanding, it's about feeling. Humans, they can do things no other species can. Subtle, unexpected, devastatingly effective." Even the bar staff, who were robotic constructions designed for efficiency rather than emotion, paused in their duties. Drinks floated in midair as if the gravity itself respected the song. Instruments that had hummed erratically found a perfect, haunting harmony with Lyra's voice. The room vibrated with resonance, both physical and emotional. Lyra opened her eyes as she reached the climax of this section. The language of the song was indecipherable to anyone alive, yet it carried meaning deeper than words. Each note evoked stories of human triumphs and tragedies, victories and losses, and the quiet, unyielding persistence of a species that refused to be forgotten. A Mervian veteran, whose species communicated through telepathic resonance, felt waves of recognition wash over him. Images of past human diplomats negotiating peace treaties, human warriors holding their ground against impossible odds, and human scientists unlocking mysteries of the cosmos surged through his mind. The song had reached into his psyche and stirred something buried for centuries. The younger aliens in the room were no longer skeptical. Some were frightened, others were in awe. None could articulate why, but they sensed the power Lyra carried in her voice. Humans had always been unpredictable, yes, but this was more than unpredictability. This was mastery over emotion, history, and influence distilled into a performance. One by one, veterans from different species rose to their feet. Tentacles, claws, and multi-jointed limbs reached towards the stage in gestures of respect. Some saluted, others bowed. Lyra's song did not discriminate. It resonated across species, across cultures, across millennia of conflict and alliance. For the first time, humans were not outsiders in the galaxy. They were central, their presence undeniable. The younger crowd shifted uneasily. Why are they standing? One asked. It's just a song. It's never just a song with humans, a veteran replied, voice calm but firm. They do not fight like others. They do not negotiate like others. And now, they move history itself with their voices. Lyra moved seamlessly into the next verse, her performance a crescendo that entwined technical skill and raw emotional power. Every note seemed to resonate with a different species' cultural memory, touching something forgotten, yet eternal. For the aliens, the bar became more than a place of entertainment. It was a conduit, a bridge connecting past and present, humans and aliens alike. The Elder Zarkonian blinked slowly, finally understanding why humans had always been underestimated. They are not primitive, he murmured. They are catalysts. By the time Lyra reached the end of the verse, the bar was completely silent. Even the chaotic energy of the celestial note could not penetrate the gravity of the moment. Patrons who had scoffed moments before now watched with rapt attention. The song's vibrations lingered in the air, a tangible presence that refused to dissipate. Lyra opened her eyes and looked across the room. She did not need to speak. The room already understood. Humans had arrived, and they carried a history, a culture, and a power that no alien could ignore. The first step was done. Attention had been captured. Respect was beginning to form. And somewhere in the far corners of the bar, where holograms of extinct constellations flickered faintly, the galaxy itself seemed to lean in, waiting to hear the next note. Lyra took a measured breath as the echo of the previous verse faded. The bar remained hushed, every patron, alien and human alike, watching her with a mixture of curiosity, disbelief, and, in some cases, apprehension. The celestial note was no ordinary venue. It was a crossroads of history, a place where veterans carried memories of wars, peace treaties, and alliances spanning centuries. And for the first time, a human was commanding attention not through technology or negotiation, but through sheer artistry. She opened her music book once more, revealing a sequence of notes more intricate than any before. These notes were not simply music. They were coded history, a rhythm that carried the heartbeat of human civilization across time. The language was dead, the melodies long forgotten, yet the resonance was undeniable. Lyra began the next section. Her voice flowed like liquid metal, pure and unyielding, vibrating in frequencies that seemed almost alien in their effect. The first few notes pierced the air like shards of crystal, precise yet hauntingly beautiful. Holographic lights above the stage responded instinctively, painting the room with patterns of color and motion, arcs of energy that twisted in synchronization with her voice. The younger aliens, who had initially scoffed, froze mid-laughter. Their eyes widened, mouths half open as the unusual resonance reached them. Even the robotic bar staff, designed to emulate emotion, paused in mid-task. Drinks hung suspended in zero-G. Instruments emitted soft harmonic vibrations, and the holographic lyrics shimmered in awe. A Mervian veteran who communicated through telepathic resonance felt the melody not only with his ears, but in the core of his mind. Memories he had never lived but somehow remembered surged through him. Images of long-lost human diplomats negotiating peace, explorers charting unknown star systems, and warriors holding their ground against impossible odds. He muttered fragments of recognition under his breath, a language extinct for centuries. The humans, they recall. The Qatari veteran, who had been skeptical moments ago, leaned closer to the stage. His translucent skin shimmered, antennae quivering. Impossible. This melody, it predates even the archives. How is she singing it? Lyra's voice carried emotion that no artificial translator or instrument could replicate. Every note was calculated yet instinctive, technical yet soulful. The aliens had never encountered anything like it. The melody evoked a complex tapestry of emotion, pride, sorrow, defiance, and hope, all threaded together in a way that transcended species and language. A few younger patrons attempted to hum along. Their tones clashed harshly with Lyra's, jarring and uncoordinated. They faltered, realizing too late that no technology, no vocal augmentation could mimic what she was doing. She wasn't simply singing, she was commanding the room, bending perception and stirring recognition deep in the minds of those who had lived centuries. The veterans, on the other hand, began to rise. One by one they stood, a silent chorus of acknowledgement. Claws, tentacles, and limbs expended in gestures of respect, while others saluted in traditions that had survived countless wars. The younger aliens looked on, confused, unable to comprehend the authority the human held without weapon or device. Lyra's song reached a crescendo. Her notes wove in patterns that resonated with different species' histories simultaneously. Each veteran seemed to perceive something unique. Memories of shared battles, long-lost treaties, or fleeting human legends that had survived only in whispered accounts. The song was more than music. It was a bridge connecting cultures, epochs, and consciousness itself. An elder Zarkonian, whose body was scarred from centuries of combat, stood rigid. He recalled stories from his youth, encounters with humans that had seemed inconsequential at the time. But now he understood. Humans were subtle, unpredictable, and remarkably resilient. Their greatest power was not their strength or technology, but their ability to inspire and influence through creativity and emotion. Even the younger patrons, who had mocked her at first, began to shift uncomfortably. They could not articulate why, but the song penetrated something primal, something instinctive. A whispered phrase floated across the room from a veteran. They command respect without even trying. Lyra's eyes remained closed as she navigated the bridge of the song. Every vibration, every note carried intention. She was not performing for applause or recognition. She was performing to awaken memory, to remind the galaxy of the human's enduring presence. The ancient language may have been dead, but through her, it spoke louder than any translator could ever convey. Holographic projections above the stage began to shift. Images of long-forgotten Earth landscapes flickered into being. Forests, oceans, mountains, cities no longer standing. Aliens gasped, sensing that these visuals were not mere illusions, but echoes of a living past, tied directly to the song's cadence and emotion. For a moment, the bar itself became a museum, a repository of human history, alive in real time. The younger aliens, now silent, exchanged nervous glances. "It's like she's reaching into our minds," one whispered. I feel things I shouldn't feel." "Yes," a veteran replied. "She's doing what humans do best. They are unpredictable, yes, but their power lies in their subtlety, in what they can't be measured by technology or warfare. She moves history, memory, and respect with her voice." Lyra's voice softened, transitioning into a sequence of notes that carried deep sorrow. This part of the song told of human loss, of civilizations fallen and cultures erased. It resonated in the veterans' hearts, some of whom had participated in conflicts that had indirectly caused such losses. They felt the weight of time, a recognition that humans endured against impossible odds. The bar was completely silent now. The chatter, the laughter, even the floating instruments' occasional squeals, all of it vanished. Only Lyra's voice remained, a thread of human presence weaving through the minds and hearts of every being in the room. As she hit the final note of the bridge, a profound stillness settled. Alien veterans remained standing, some saluting, others bowing slightly. Younger patrons gawked, unsure how to react. The humans present felt a quiet thrill. For the first time in many of their lifetimes, they were not the underdogs in an alien-dominated environment. They were central to the moment. Lyra opened her eyes and scanned the room. She did not need to speak. The effect of her song spoke volumes. She had pierced the veil of skepticism and disbelief. She had demonstrated, without violence, without diplomacy, the subtle yet undeniable strength of humanity, the ability to inspire, to awaken memory, and to command respect through culture, history, and sheer presence. Some veterans whispered among themselves, "They remember more than we expected. A human leading the room without a single weapon. We underestimated them, and we should not have." Lyra took a small step forward, her eyes gleaming. This was only the beginning. The first verse had captured attention, the first bridge had stirred recognition, and the next sequence, the chorus, would demand respect. She was ready to push further, to ensure that humans' presence in the galaxy would no longer be underestimated. The room seemed to lean in collectively, waiting for her next note. A single unspoken tension filled the air. The veterans, the younger aliens, even the robotic bar staff, all held their attention fully on the human who dared to sing a language long dead and to move them all with nothing but a voice. And so the impossible continued.
The room remained hushed, the only sound Lyra's voice, rising and falling like a tide that none of the patrons could resist. The first bridge had pierced curiosity, had awakened latent recognition, but now the full weight of her performance began to settle over the bar. The celestial note, normally a chaotic, boisterous hub of interstellar mischief, had become something sacred. Lyra's next sequence was intricate, a tapestry of human emotion encoded in melody. Each note carried subtle inflections that spoke of triumph and loss, of resilience against impossible odds. She had not practiced this section in months. It was instinct, memory, and the resonance of her species flowing through her. The language she sang was dead, forgotten even on Earth, yet it held power beyond comprehension. The elder Zarkonian veteran, whose claws had tapped idly on the bar mere moments before, now froze in full attention. The song echoed fragments of a melody he had heard in his youth, in a hall of humans and aliens, long since dissolved into legend. His antennae twitched involuntarily, absorbing the intricate patterns of sound. This melody, this timing, it was thought lost forever. Across the room, a Mervian veteran, his telepathic senses normally attuned to tactical signals, felt waves of emotion wash over him. Memories not his own flooded his mind. Humans exploring uncharted star systems, discovering distant civilizations, negotiating peace treaties that had prevented interstellar wars. These images were not visual projections. They were echoes encoded in the very frequencies Lyra emitted. Her song reached deeper than language. It spoke to the shared consciousness of the galaxy's veterans. Even the younger aliens, previously skeptical and mocking, were held in thrall. Tentacles froze mid-air, limbs locked, eyes wide in incomprehension. A few whispered among themselves, trying to rationalize what was happening. "It's impossible, she's just singing." "No," one veteran corrected, voice trembling. "It is never just singing with humans. They reach something beyond the obvious, beyond the rational. It's memory, history, emotion, power." Lyra's voice shifted, softening slightly as she navigated the mournful second verse. This part of the song carried the weight of human history.
the civilizations that had risen and fallen, the struggles that had defined her species, and the quiet determination that had allowed humanity to endure against unimaginable odds. Her notes were precise, each one resonating in the room like a key unlocking a locked chest of memory and respect. Holographic projections above the stage responded as though guided by instinct. Ancient Earth landscapes shimmered into being, vast forests, sprawling deserts, and oceans that sparkled under alien suns. The images weren't simply decorative, they moved in sync with Lyra's voice, each gesture of sound creating a ripple of light, a visual echo of what her ancestors had experienced. Veterans from various species gasped quietly, recognizing elements of Earth that had intersected with their own histories. The elder Qatari, translucent and scarred from decades of combat, whispered in disbelief, "It cannot be. The humans. They carry the past with them, alive and present." He reached out a limb instinctively, though he knew it was a gesture of acknowledgement rather than interaction. The weight of respect was becoming tangible. Lyra's tempo increased subtly, and the melody grew more complex. Now the song was not just performance, it was communication, a dialogue between species and time. Veterans leaned forward, their bodies unconsciously mirroring the rhythm, as if the music dictated not only emotion, but movement. The younger aliens, unsure how to respond, watched in awe and a growing sense of unease. They could sense that this was not entertainment, not a game. It was something far more profound. The air in the bar seemed charged with energy. Instruments, mechanical and organic alike, resonated in harmony with Lyra's voice. Drinks floated in mid-air, swirling in synchronized patterns, while holographic lyrics morphed into intricate symbols that shimmered with each note. The song's influence was undeniable. It was pulling threads from the collective consciousness of everyone present. A few of the younger aliens tried to leave, feeling overwhelmed. The energy was too powerful, too alien, too human. But the veterans gently guided them back, understanding instinctively that this was a moment of recognition, of respect being formed. The song demanded attention. It required acknowledgement. Lyra's eyes remained closed as she reached the song's emotional apex. This part required not just technical mastery, but empathy and connection. She projected centuries of human experience into every note, the courage of explorers, the quiet strength of those who endured hardship, and the unshakable determination to survive and thrive against odds that would have broken other species. The elder Mervian veteran's telepathic resonance quivered with emotion. He remembered a forgotten alliance with humans, a coalition that had averted catastrophe in the Orion Rim. Memories that had faded into obscurity resurfaced, accompanied by a profound sense of awe. He realized the humans had never been ordinary. They had always been catalysts for change, for inspiration, for resilience. Across the room, alien veterans who had scoffed at humans' cultural insignificance now stood silently, some saluting, some bowing, all acknowledging that humanity carried something the galaxy had underestimated. They had dismissed humans as minor players, unpredictable and inexperienced. But now, in the presence of Lyra's voice, they understood the subtle but undeniable strength of the species. Lyra transitioned into a softer sequence, a lull in the song designed not to end the performance, but to allow the emotional impact to settle. The bar was silent except for her voice, and in that silence, the patrons absorbed the full weight of what they had just experienced. Respect had been commanded, not demanded. Awe had been inspired, not forced. A Zarkonian veteran murmured, almost reverently, They carry their history with them, not as a burden, but as a weapon of influence. Humans, they are unlike any other species. He lowered his claws slowly, signaling a tentative but unmistakable acknowledgement of mastery. The younger aliens, witnessing the shift, began to understand. Humor and mockery had no place here. This human, unarmed, without any technology or political leverage, had achieved something that no alien had managed before. She had awakened memory,
stirred emotion, and commanded respect purely through expression. Lyra opened her eyes and scanned the room. The elders were standing, some still saluting, others simply watching with quiet reverence. The younger aliens, hesitant but attentive, mirrored the respect instinctively. Even the robotic staff, designed to emulate courtesy, aligned themselves in a gesture of acknowledgement. Her song had crossed barriers of species, culture, and time. It had reached beyond comprehension and spoken directly to the essence of those listening. Humans, she realized, were underestimated not because they lacked power, but because their power was subtle, unpredictable, and profoundly effective in ways the galaxy was only beginning to understand. The final notes of this verse lingered in the air, a shimmering thread of resonance that refused to dissipate. Patrons held their breath, suspended in awe, as the bar itself seemed to vibrate in recognition. Her first full section had done more than impress. It had begun to rewrite the perception of humanity in the galaxy. She allowed herself a small smile. The veterans had noticed, the young ones had begun to understand, and the galaxy, through the echoes of her song, had begun to remember. But the song was far from finished. The next part, the chorus, would not only demand respect, it would solidify it. And the galaxy was about to witness the full force of humanity's subtle, undeniable power. The bar had fallen into a stillness that seemed almost unnatural. The celestial note, with its floating instruments, swirling holograms, and zero-G dancers, now felt like a sacred hall. Lyra's song had reached a point where mere listening was no longer sufficient. The music was a living force, and those present, veterans and younglings alike, could feel it resonating deep within their bones. Lyra's voice rose in a crescendo, clear and unwavering. The notes intertwined with the holographic projections above, creating constellations of light that mirrored the galaxy's forgotten histories. Each color, each shimmer, carried weight. Victories long past, treaties barely remembered, alliances that had shaped star systems. She wasn't just singing, she was relaying centuries of human triumphs and failures, of endurance and ingenuity in a form that no alien technology could replicate. Veterans began to move first. The Zarkonian general, whose claws had once torn through fleets in countless wars, rose slowly from his seat. He straightened his back, a gesture of respect in his species' culture, and his multifaceted eyes glimmered with acknowledgement. Tentacles, claws, and limbs from other species followed suit. Salutes, bows, and other cultural gestures of respect rippled through the bar like a tidal wave. Even some younger aliens, hesitant at first, mirrored the motions instinctively. One Mervian veteran, whose telepathic sense had always been his primary mode of communication, felt the song in his mind as a physical presence. Memories of human negotiators preventing wars flashed vividly. Images of explorers venturing into uncharted territories, of scientists uncovering secrets that spanned galaxies, surged through his consciousness. He whispered aloud in awe, "The humans. They influence without even touching, without weapon or machine. They move the galaxy itself." The younger aliens tried to resist, to maintain composure, but the room's energy was irresistible. A tentacled apprentice whispered to his companion, Why are we standing?" The companion, a veteran of interstellar policing, simply shook his head. "It's not something you understand. It's something you feel. Humans, they command respect in ways we cannot yet grasp." Lyra transitioned into the chorus, the song's heart. The notes became richer, layered, complex, a tapestry of sound and emotion. Every syllable carried centuries of human experience. Each vibration was a subtle call to memory and honor. The air itself seemed charged with resonance, vibrating in rhythm with her voice. Holographic displays around the bar responded instinctively, weaving a narrative of humanity's enduring spirit across time and space. A Qatari veteran, translucent and scarred from centuries of combat, closed his eyes. He had fought alongside humans in conflicts few alive today remembered. Yet now, through Lyra's song, he felt the essence of those encounters, every strategic maneuver, every sacrifice, every small victory, resonating anew. He whispered, almost reverently,
They are not what we expected. Humans. They endure. They inspire. They endure and inspire. Lyra's voice softened briefly, a lull amidst the crescendo, yet the effect was no less profound. The veterans were not just standing, they were paying homage. Some saluted, claws raised in solemn acknowledgement, others bowed their heads, antennae quivering, fully aware that a human had, without a single weapon, altered the atmosphere of the room. Even the bar's robotic attendants adjusted their postures, mimicking respect in subtle ways. The younger aliens looked on, wide-eyed and uncertain. They had come expecting entertainment, perhaps some amusement at human naivety. Instead, they witnessed humans commanding authority in a way that transcended force, cunning, or diplomacy. They were learning, perhaps for the first time, that human influence was subtle, unpredictable, and devastatingly effective. Lyra's eyes remained closed as she guided the song into its emotional apex. The melodies now intertwined with subtle harmonics that resonated with different species' historical memories. The veterans felt recognition, nostalgia, pride, and awe, all converging in a moment of unspoken understanding. This was not performance. This was communion. Humans, through music, had bridged species, histories, and cultures. The Zarkonian general finally spoke, voice low, but firm, resonating through the room. We underestimated them. We thought humans were insignificant, but they command respect without demanding it. They inspire without seeking recognition. This is their strength. Mervian whispers echoed through the bar. It's a human, leading the room without weapon or threat. Only a song. Some veterans nodded solemnly, eyes glimmering with newfound appreciation. Lyra's voice soared higher. The notes now resonated physically, stirring vibrations that aligned with the neural pathways of the veterans, memories previously locked away, of battles fought with humans, of alliances forged, and cultures touched by human ingenuity, flooded their minds. The veterans began to salute more formally, gestures precise and unyielding, a universal acknowledgement across species. The younger aliens, sensing the shift, began to imitate the veterans, hesitant, awkward, but sincere. They followed suit. The bar, once chaotic and lively, had transformed into a hall of honor, every participant connected through the resonance of human culture. Lyra's song was the invisible thread tying them all together, a reminder that influence and power could exist beyond force or technology. The room itself seemed to pulse with reverence. Instruments, both organic and mechanical, harmonized instinctively with her voice. Holographic constellations shimmered above, illustrating humanity's legacy across the galaxy. Even the drinks floating mid-air seemed to pause in respect, suspended as if acknowledging the significance of the moment. Lyra's eyes opened briefly, scanning the room. She saw understanding dawning in the younger aliens, respect etched into the faces of veterans, and even the robotic staff aligning in subtle gestures of acknowledgement. Her song had achieved what few humans had ever attempted. She had transformed skepticism into reverence, mockery into honor. The chorus reached its zenith, a soaring climax that carried the full weight of humanity's enduring spirit. Notes cascaded through the bar, vibrating in the minds and hearts of every listener. The veterans stood taller, saluting with precision. The younglings mimicked with awe. The bar itself seemed to vibrate with life. A Mervian veteran, overwhelmed by the song's resonance, whispered, They are catalysts, not conquerors, not oppressors, catalysts. Everything shifts when they are present. His words carried authority, and the others nodded in quiet agreement. Lyra allowed the final note to linger, a shimmering echo that refused to dissipate. Silence followed, not uncomfortable, but reverent. No one clapped. No one needed to. The room had already acknowledged her achievement in the only way that mattered: respect. Lyra stepped back, lowering her music book. She didn't need applause. The veterans standing salutes, the younglings mimicking with awe, and the bar's collective stillness were all she needed. Humanity had been heard.
recognized, and respected not through force, not through diplomacy, but through culture, history, and expression. The first full acknowledgement was complete. The room had risen, and with it, the perception of humans in the galaxy had shifted irreversibly. Lyra had not just sung. She had reminded the galaxy of a fundamental truth. Humans were subtle, unpredictable, and profoundly influential, capable of commanding attention and respect in ways that no other species could.
Lyra felt the energy of the bar, of every being present, converge as she prepared to enter the song's final, most demanding section. The chorus had already established humanity's presence. The bridge had awakened memory and respect. Now came the apex, the moment that would transform admiration into reverence and acknowledgement into awe. The holographic constellations above her swirled in anticipation, reflecting the vibrations of the notes that had already flowed through the room. The veterans, standing tall, their salutes precise, felt the subtle shifts in the atmosphere. Their sensory appendages twitched involuntarily, as though attuned to something beyond mere sound. Even the robotic staff seemed to lean in, sensors aligning in a way that mimicked consciousness. Lyra inhaled deeply. Her voice emerged, pure and commanding, threading a melody that no translator, instrument, or alien tongue could replicate. The notes carried centuries of human ingenuity, resilience, and emotion. Each tone reached out to the veterans, stirring memories of long-forgotten alliances, battles, and diplomacy that had been lost to time. The Mervian veteran, his telepathic resonance attuned to patterns of influence, felt waves of recognition crash through him. Images of human explorers navigating impossible territories, scientists unlocking cosmic secrets, and warriors who stood their ground against overwhelming odds flickered vividly in his mind. Lyra's song was not merely music, it was encoded history, transmitted through voice, emotion, and intention. The younger aliens, who had once mocked humanity, were frozen in awe. They could not comprehend why their bodies reacted instinctively, mirroring the veterans' posture of respect. Some whispered, "It's impossible. How is she doing this?" Others remained silent, sensing that any attempt to rationalize would fall short. Lyra's voice rose, weaving a complex pattern of harmonics. The sound was no longer linear, it spiraled through the room, resonating in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Holographic visuals of ancient Earth, forests, oceans, ruins of cities long gone, flickered and danced above, synchronized perfectly with her melody. Veterans gasped softly, recognizing fragments of the human past that had intersected with their own species' histories. A Zarkonian general, whose claws had torn through fleets and countless conflicts, whispered in disbelief. They hold history itself in their voice. Humanity? Underestimated? Never again. His eyes glimmered with awe, antennae quivering. He lowered his claws slightly, signaling respect without words. The chorus swelled, intertwining with the song's final movement. Lyra's voice became more than sound. It was resonance, vibration, a force that reached into the hearts and minds of everyone present. Tentacles, claws, and limbs across species aligned in gestures of respect. Some veterans saluted, others bowed, and a few even knelt, a universal acknowledgement that transcended cultures. The younger aliens hesitated, unsure whether to follow, but instinct overtook doubt. They mirrored the gestures of the veterans, awkwardly at first, but then with sincerity. The room had transformed from a chaotic entertainment venue into a hall of honor, bound together by the subtle but undeniable power of human expression. Lyra's eyes remained closed as she pushed into the song's emotional apex. Notes now carried a dual weight, the sorrow of civilizations lost and the triumph of those who endured. Her voice wove through the air, threading together centuries of human experience into a single, resonant tapestry. Each listener felt a connection, a recognition of humanity's unique ability to endure, adapt, and inspire. A Mervian veteran's telepathic sense quivered incontrollably. Memories long buried surged forward. Humans mediating disputes between rival civilizations, explorers charting unknown star systems, scientists discovering truths that had reshaped the galaxy. He muttered under his breath, almost reverently, They are catalysts. Everything shifts in their presence. Even the robotic staff, designed for efficiency rather than emotion, adjusted posture, sensors aligning as if acknowledging an unspoken hierarchy. Drinks suspended in zero-G rotated gently, lights flickered, and instruments harmonized instinctively, their vibrations amplifying the song's resonance. Lyra's crescendo reached its zenith. Notes spiraled outward, saturating the bar with power that was both subtle and undeniable. Every veteran, from the oldest to the youngest, felt the magnitude of what was happening. Respect was no longer tentative, it had solidified into awe. The younger aliens, unable to resist the force, straightened. Tentacles aligned, limbs rose, and antennae quivered. They had witnessed humans in action before, but never like this. No weapon, no threat, no political maneuver, only culture, history, and expression commanding authority. A Zarkonian veteran, moved to speech, murmured, They influence without force, without dominance. They teach, inspire, and endure. This is their true power. His voice was low, measured, but filled with conviction. Lyra allowed the final note to linger. The resonance was palpable, vibrating through the floor, the walls, and the very air of the bar. Silence followed, not awkward, not uncertain, but reverent. Every being present recognized what had occurred. Humans were not just participants in the galactic stage, they were central actors, subtle and profound. Veterans saluted formally, a unified acknowledgement of humanity's cultural and historical weight. The younger aliens, observing this, mirrored the gestures, their initial skepticism replaced by a budding understanding. The bar itself, a floating chaotic hub in orbit, seemed to breathe in recognition. Holographic constellations shimmered, aligning with the song's lingering resonance. Lyra opened her eyes and scanned the room. She did not need applause. The gestures of respect, the quiet awe, and the subtle alignment of even the robotic staff were sufficient. Humans had arrived, not with weapons or demands, but with presence, culture, and history, made tangible through voice. The room remained still for a moment, absorbing the magnitude of the performance. Every veteran, every young alien, every observer had been touched by something profound. Humanity had been underestimated for long enough, but now through Lyra's song, the galaxy had been reminded humans endure, humans inspire, and humans influence in ways that no other species could predict or counter. Lyra allowed herself a small, satisfied smile. The song had reached its peak. The next step would be reflection, acknowledgement, and understanding. Humanity had made its mark, not through conquest, but through the subtle and undeniable force of culture, history, and expression. And the galaxy would never view humans the same way again.
The final note lingered in the air like a living thread, vibrating softly yet persistently through the entire bar. Silence reigned, heavy and reverent, as the patrons absorbed the weight of what had just occurred. The celestial note, normally a place of chaos, laughter, and interspecies banter, had been transformed into a hall of acknowledgement. Veterans remained standing, some saluting, some bowing, all fixed in gestures of respect that had taken decades, if not centuries, to evolve. Their expressions reflected a rare mix of awe and contemplation.
Even the youngest aliens, initially skeptical and mocking, mirrored the Elder's movements, hesitant but sincere. The room had collectively witnessed something extraordinary. Humanity, unarmed and unaugmented, commanding absolute attention and respect. Lyra stepped off the stage, her worn music book tucked under her arm. She didn't hurry. Every movement was deliberate, graceful, measured, the way a human who had learned patience and endurance moved after centuries of hardship. Her eyes scanned the room, noting the subtle shifts in posture, the quiet murmurs of recognition, the faint glimmer of pride in alien eyes. A Qatari veteran approached her first. His translucent skin shimmered with subdued energy, reflecting the room's ambient lights. His antennae twitched as he studied her carefully. Then he extended a multi-jointed limb in formal acknowledgement. "You have reminded us of something long forgotten," he said, voice resonant. "Humans possess influence that transcends weaponry, politics, and even technology. You have reminded us of your enduring presence." Lyra inclined her head in a gesture of humility. "I only sang what my ancestors knew. I didn't invent the power. I merely carried it forward." Her voice was calm, quiet, yet carried a weight that no alien translator could fully capture. The Zarkonian general stepped forward next. Scarred claws folded respectfully as he addressed her. "We dismissed humans for being unpredictable, insignificant, and unrefined. Today we have learned our mistake. Your song has reminded us, humans endure, humans inspire, and humans command respect in ways we cannot quantify." Lyra smiled faintly. "Perhaps it is not the humans themselves that inspire, but the memory of what we have endured. The song is a thread, connecting past, present, and future." The room seemed to hum softly, as if affirming her words. Veterans from multiple species, Mervian, Qatari, Zarkonian, Tariathi, approached her slowly, some offering formal salutes, others bowing. Each gesture was steeped in culture, a universal acknowledgement that humans were not outsiders, but integral actors on the galactic stage. A Mervian veteran, usually stoic and analytical, touched his chest lightly with a claw. "I have lived through countless wars. I have witnessed species rise and fall. Never have I seen a demonstration of influence so subtle yet absolute. Humans, you remind us that power need not be violent to be undeniable." The younger aliens, initially skeptical and rowdy, now approached with wide eyes. Some whispered among themselves, others spoke softly and tempting to emulate the gestures of the veterans. I didn't understand at first, but now it is clear. Humans, they can lead without weapons, without dominance, only through presence, through history, through song." Lyra nodded, acknowledging their words with quiet dignity. She did not boast. She had not performed to dominate or to impress. She had performed to awaken memory, to remind a galaxy of a truth long overlooked. Humans were subtle, unpredictable, and profoundly influential. A Zarkonian officer, a veteran of fleets and battles long past, addressed her formally. "Your voice has rewritten perception. Never again will humans be dismissed. Never again will we underestimate the subtle strength that your species carries." He lowered his claws fully, a gesture of ultimate respect. Even the bar itself seemed to participate in the acknowledgement. Holographic projections shifted subtly, aligning in constellations that mirrored human history across space. Floating instruments harmonized quietly, as if joining in a silent chorus of recognition. The patrons, both alien and human, understood that this was not mere performance, it was transformation. Lyra moved toward the bar, passing between clusters of standing veterans. Each greeted her with gestures of honor and quiet murmurs of respect. She absorbed the recognition without arrogance, understanding that respect earned in this manner was profound, precisely because it was freely given. A young Tariathi apprentice, trembling slightly, approached her last. I didn't believe humans mattered," he admitted, voice shaking. "But now I see. Humans endure, humans influence, and humans inspire. You have shown us all." Lyra smiled, reaching out gently. She touched his shoulder, a simple gesture of reassurance, and he straightened, a flicker of confidence igniting within him. The veterans stepped back, forming a subtle semicircle around Lyra. Their salutes and bows were no longer hesitant. They were formal, precise, and unanimous. The younger aliens, observing this cohesion, mirrored the respect instinctively. Humanity's presence had been solidified not through confrontation, but through culture, history, and subtle force of will. The Elders Arconian general, addressing the room, spoke with a tone that carried centuries of authority. "Let this moment serve as a reminder. Humans are not to be underestimated. They endure, they adapt, and they influence the galaxy in ways that cannot be measured by technology, weaponry, or treaties alone. Their power lies in subtlety, in memory, in expression. Today, we have witnessed it firsthand." Lyra's gaze swept across the room. She saw comprehension dawning in the younger aliens' faces, admiration solidifying in the veterans' expressions, and acknowledgement permeating every corner of the bar. Her performance had done more than entertain. It had reshaped perceptions, altered expectations, and forged a subtle but unshakable recognition of humanity's cultural and historical weight. She raised her music book slightly, signaling both the end of the performance and the acknowledgement of the audience. The room responded collectively, a chorus of silent respect, nods, and salutes. There was no applause, not because it was unwanted, but because none was necessary. The respect was already formalized, encoded in gestures, attention, and shared understanding. Lyra took a final, quiet breath. The song, the performance, the acknowledgement, it had all achieved its purpose. Humans, through patience, artistry, and the endurance of memory, had made their mark. The galaxy had taken notice, and it would not soon forget. The veterans began to disperse slowly, speaking quietly among themselves, recounting fragments of human history newly recalled, and adjusting their perception of a species long underestimated. The younger aliens, inspired, followed suit, carrying with them a newfound awareness of humanity's subtle, formidable presence. Lyra remained standing for a moment longer, alone on the stage, absorbing the silence and the weight of the transformation she had caused. Then, with a measured step, she descended to the bar floor. Her role in this particular performance was complete. She had sung history into life, had awakened respect across species, and had demonstrated that humans wielded a power that could not be ignored. And the galaxy, ever watchful, had been reminded.
The hum of the bar had shifted from chaos to reverent calm. The celestial note, normally a floating carnival of interstellar frivolity, had become a sanctuary of acknowledgement. Aliens of countless species lingered in clusters, murmuring quietly to one another, their gestures of respect still lingering. Some saluted, some bowed, some simply stood, hands or limbs folded in silent tribute. The transformation was profound. Humanity had left its mark without firing a single shot or issuing a single command. Lyra remained at the center of the room, music book closed now, the weight of the performance settling comfortably upon her shoulders. The echo of her song lingered in the air, resonating in minds, hearts, and even in the artificial sensors of robotic staff. She allowed herself a small, private smile. She had done more than perform. She had reminded the galaxy that humans endured, influenced, and inspired in ways others could not fully quantify. The elder Zarkonian general approached her, his posture relaxed yet commanding. "I must admit," he said, voice low but measured, "we underestimated you. Humanity's strength is subtle, insidious even, but undeniable. You do not conquer by force, you command by presence and culture. This will be remembered." Lyra inclined her head. Respect is not something forced, it is earned through patience, understanding, and persistence. Humans have lived long enough to understand that. A Qatari veteran, still shimmering with translucent energy, stepped forward next. "I have witnessed countless species rise and fall. I have seen civilizations toppled, fleets destroyed, alliances shattered. But never have I encountered influence like yours. It is not just the song, it is the legacy embedded in the song. Humans endure, and that endurance inspires others." A Mervian veteran's voice chimed in from behind, telepathically transmitting waves of awe that reached every nearby species. "They are catalysts. We have fought alongside humans, negotiated with humans, even underestimated them. And yet, here we see, without threat or weaponry, the full measure of their subtle power. Humanity cannot be ignored." The younger aliens, previously skeptical and uncertain, began to speak softly among themselves. I didn't understand at first. But now, humans shape the galaxy in ways we cannot yet comprehend. Their presence alone alters history, memory, and influence. Another added, "It is not brute strength. It is not technology. It is essence. Humanity carries a force beyond comprehension." The room seemed to pulse with acknowledgement. Even the robotic attendants, designed to mimic courtesy rather than experience emotion, had aligned themselves in subtle gestures of recognition. Holographic constellations shimmered faintly above the bar, now reflecting humanity's history and achievements in abstract patterns, as if the very space recognized what had transpired. Lyra moved among the veterans, exchanging nods and quiet acknowledgments. She didn't need to speak further. Her performance had already spoken volumes. These beings, who had survived centuries of interstellar conflict, who had encountered countless civilizations, now approached her with respect, curiosity, and acknowledgement. She had demonstrated that humans could influence the galaxy through art, memory, and culture alone. A Zarkonian officer, younger than the general but seasoned enough to command fleets, spoke finally. "We must carry this forward. Humans are no longer outsiders. They are central actors in the galaxy, and we must remember it. Lyra, your song has rewritten our perception." Lyra allowed herself a faint, knowing smile. "Then carry it well. Humanity's influence is subtle but persistent.
Remember what we endure, what we create, and what we inspire. That is our legacy." The veterans, one by one, began to disperse, yet their gestures remained formal and deliberate. Salutes, bows, and subtle acknowledgments followed Lyra as she moved toward the edge of the bar. Even the younger aliens, who had once mocked her, now moved with tentative reverence, understanding for the first time that humans wielded power in ways that transcended expectation. A Mervian veteran lingered longer than the others, his telepathic resonance gently washing over Lyra like a warm tide. "You have reminded us," he said softly, "that influence is not measured by fleets or weapons, but culture, memory, and persistence. Humanity will be remembered differently now." Lyra nodded, understanding the deeper truth. The galaxy had underestimated humans for too long, not because they were weak, but because their strength was subtle, unpredictable, and profoundly effective. Her song had been proof of that truth, a demonstration that humans could inspire awe and command respect without confrontation. The younger aliens approached, hesitant but sincere. One stepped forward and bowed awkwardly. I will remember this," he said, voice quiet but determined. "Humans, they endure, they influence, they inspire. I will not forget." Lyra placed a hand gently on his shoulder. "Do not simply remember," she said. "Learn, observe, understand. Humanity's influence is subtle, but it is constant. Carry that with you." The room had quieted entirely, each alien participant absorbing the gravity of the moment. Even those who did not fully comprehend the ancient human language could feel its impact. Respect had been earned, acknowledgement established, and the subtle authority of humanity recognized across species. Lyra stepped back toward the stage, letting the silence stretch. There was no applause. None was necessary. The respect, the acknowledgement, and the understanding had been granted in full, formal, and universal measure. The veterans had risen, the younger aliens had followed, and even the technology of the bar seemed to align in quiet recognition. As she looked out at the room, Lyra realized the full scope of what had been accomplished. Humans were no longer underestimated. Their culture, history, and endurance had left an indelible mark on the galaxy. Veterans would recount the story of this night, young aliens would carry it forward, and humans' subtle power would ripple outward in ways no one could yet predict. A final thought passed through her mind. Influence did not require dominance, control, or weapons. It required endurance, creativity, and the willingness to express one's history and culture boldly. Humans had always possessed this power, but few had truly recognized it, until tonight. The bar lights dimmed slightly, the holograms flickering one last time in acknowledgement. Lyra closed her eyes, feeling the room's collective reverence. The acknowledgement of centuries-old memory wakened, and the quiet promise that humans would never again be underestimated. And so the last note faded. But the legacy of that note, the proof of humanity's subtle, undeniable influence, would resonate across the galaxy for generations. Lyra took a deep breath and smiled, knowing that the song was only the beginning. The galaxy had listened, the galaxy had acknowledged, and humanity had been seen, not for its weapons, its numbers, or its technology, but for its endurance, its culture, and its incomparable ability to inspire. The veterans departed slowly, leaving a trail of silent acknowledgement. The younger aliens lingered, whispering, observing, learning. And in the center of it all, Lyra stood, the song complete, the galaxy changed, and humanity's quiet power fully revealed. This was the first note of a new legacy.